Dealing with Loneliness and Intimacy by Father Michael Decewicz. Chapter 1. Staying Connected to Others and to Ourselves. Fear of loneliness and the desire for intimacy are two sides of the same coin. These desires can cause conflict, tension, and emptiness. The solution to this tension is solitude and community. The quest, the journey for solitude and community is the quest for balance and harmony. It is this journey that calls us to authenticity, courage, patience, and persistence. To begin the journey to solitude and community, I think we need to look at our fear of loneliness. I can only speak from my own example, and I hope my experience speaks to you. For me, the fear of loneliness can at times be overwhelming. It is an emptiness, a heaviness that can suffocate my spirit, and so I will do anything to avoid this pain. Fill up my life with busyness, activity, seek some sort of distraction or something that numbs the pain and covers the reality. It is this obsessive desire to escape the experience of loneliness that causes a great deal of trouble and difficulty in our life. I think it is in these moments of desperate escape that we get ourselves in trouble. This can lead us to the abuse of alcohol, narcotics, the internet, overeating, overworking, unhealthy relationships, and so on. All of which are ways we try to run away from our fear of loneliness. I have come to believe that we need to confront and embrace our fear of loneliness. This seems logical and appropriate, but believe me, it is very painful. We need to enter into the abyss of emptiness that is our loneliness. We need to stay there, feel the pain, experience the emptiness, cry out in our anguish. As hard as it is, we need to fight the desire to escape our loneliness. As people of faith, we take this experience to God. What that means for me is that we look deeply into this anguish with our whole being and then pose two questions. Where is God in this? And what is God saying to me in this experience? Search for God in the cross of your aloneness. Seek His presence in your fear and your experience of emptiness, isolation, and a lack of a sense of belonging. Stay in this desert and listen to your thirst for belonging. Allow the Spirit to enter into your emptiness. Dwell here. Reside in the discomfort and the disquiet. Allow yourself to feel the hurt, emptiness, the pain of longing and fear. Allow yourself to cry out the prayer of Jesus, my God, why have you abandoned me? While you are here, force yourself to pray. Believe me, while you are here, prayer will be a chore and a burden, but force yourself to pray. Also, this is a time when you will need to be gentle with yourself. You will give into too many of your flaws, faults, and sins just to escape the pain for a little while. Be patient and gentle with yourself in these moments of weakness. Be as gentle with yourself as God is with you. Force yourself to reach out to others. Reacquaint yourself with old friends. Talk to someone. Search for support. I personally think this is a good time to begin 12-step work, applying these principles to your situation, and if need be, finding an appropriate 12-step group in which to participate. The experience of fellowship is the beginning of dealing with our fear of loneliness. I think we will always be afraid of loneliness, but that fear need not be disabling. I would love to say we make this journey once in our life, but that simply isn't true. Whenever we experience a loss in our life, we revisit the desert of emptiness that is our loneliness. Perhaps with time, patience, and God's grace, the fear will be less debilitating. Perhaps we can learn, with God's grace and the help of others, to accept and embrace the reality of loneliness, so as to be less afraid and more accepting of this reality in our life. How then do we move from loneliness to solitude? To begin this journey, I think we need to understand what solitude is. Solitude is not being alone without being lonely. No, solitude is much more than that. I believe solitude is living in the company of ourselves, with God in the dwelling space of aloneness. Solitude is the experience of belonging and harmony that allows us to embrace ourselves and be aware of God's presence. Solitude is the gentle embrace of God, affirming us in our brokenness and vulnerability. In this affirming environment of solitude, we gain the courage to look at ourselves as we really are, with all our hurt, pain, sin, weakness, and know that we are loved, and embrace and accept the adventure of continuing growth and change. Solitude is a precious gift that we need to cherish, cultivate, and safeguard. How then do we move from loneliness to solitude? First, as I have previously said, we can't escape our loneliness. We need to see it, know it, feel it, embrace it. I believe the path to solitude runs through the experience of loneliness. Dwell in your loneliness. See and name and know your fears. Only then is the pathway to solitude open. Love yourself. Embrace this awareness that we can seek our own company. We can dwell with ourself in the knowledge of God's love, affirming us in our brokenness and challenging us into the adventure of growth and change. Once again, the path to solitude is not a once and for all deal. No, we will experience the gift of solitude, and we will wander away from the experience. Have the courage to make this journey often, whenever you need to, because in authentic solitude, we will experience the bliss of belonging to ourselves, to God, to others. And this brings us to our desire for intimacy. The desire for intimacy is a yearning and a hunger that can be a cause of great joy and great pain. Once again, I can only speak for myself. And for me, this desire and hunger for intimacy can become an obsession, causing me to search passionately for someone with whom to share myself. I want to clarify that intimacy in this context is not physical, sexual intimacy. This is about our desire to share our spirit, our very person, with another. In this context, intimacy can be about a spouse, certainly, but it can also be a friend, a real friend, with whom we are comfortable, honest, and loving. So often, this normal and healthy desire for intimacy can become a type of obsession, a way we desperately seek to avoid loneliness. At times, we look to the other to fill our needs for intimacy, oneness, and harmony. This burden we put on those we love is unfair and impossible. No one else is responsible for my feelings of fulfillment. No one else can fill my needs. We need to first seek intimacy with ourselves. We need to discover and embrace our own wants and needs. Intimacy must begin with ourselves. I think we need to accept our feelings, our hungers, and our desires, accepting our own brokenness and vulnerability. We need to know and love ourselves. We need to be comfortable with ourselves, at home with ourselves. Only then can we bring ourselves to the other as a friend, as someone who we can love without possessiveness, jealousy, fear, or manipulation. These attitudes and characteristics of ours push an authentic experience of intimacy away. In other words, only an authentic person can really experience intimacy, which is the ability to love the other in freedom, respecting the other for whoever he or she is, and not burdening the other with demands from them, the responsibility of fulfilling our needs. To love without expectation is to love in freedom, and only in this environment is true, real, authentic intimacy possible. As such, intimacy is loving the other as they are, accepting and even embracing their freedom, and celebrating the gift of love. Now we move to the experience of community, that place where we feel and know that we belong, in where we fit. Community does not necessarily refer to physical proximity. We can experience community belonging with people who are distant and removed from our physical environment. The gift of community is that we can share our life with others in freedom, honesty, and courage, knowing that we are accepted and that we are accepting. A healthy experience of community is not demanding, controlling, restrictive, or forced. No, community is freely choosing to share ourselves with others in an environment of mutual support and interdependence. As people of faith, as Christians and Catholics, community is our participation in the mystical body of Christ. It is our collective prayer of praise, celebrating our oneness with each other and God. In conclusion, the gifts of solitude and community are proclamations of our belief in the oneness of God and the community of the Trinity.